Today we have a semifinalist team from Carnegie Mellon University who will be talking to us about their semifinalist Inclusive Design Challenge results. Just to begin, could you all start off by telling us a little about yourself, who you are, and maybe how you got interested in accessibility technology generally?
Sure. My name is Nick Martellero. I'm an assistant professor here at the Human-Computer Interaction Institute. I have a background in developing interaction design for autonomous systems, and I've done some work in the automotive space and have recently been getting into inclusive design and how to design autonomous physical systems and automotive systems for those of differing abilities.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I am also an assistant professor in the Human-Computer Interaction Institute here at CMU. And my work focuses on community-based design techniques. And in the past, I've collaborated with Patrick on a project around micromobility and its impacts on accessibility of sidewalks. So this project for me is a natural kind of extension of that, thinking about AVs.
And I am Patrick Carrington. I am also an assistant professor in the Human-Computer Interaction Institute. My research has been focused on interactive technologies specifically for people with disabilities, thinking about how people with ability differences might interact with things like smartphones and wearable devices, as well as transportation. I actually got my start in this interactive computing space, thinking about automotive systems. And so this project was a way for me to also get back into that space and get to collaborate with you.
That's fantastic. And could you guys, briefly describe your project, the accessibility challenge it's intended to address, how it works, just help give our audience a sense of the project.
Our project is about developing a design system to allow those with disabilities to communicate and control autonomous vehicles, primarily using the accessible features built into mobile phones. And the primary goal that we have is basically to give all people a way to call a vehicle, open the doors, deploy a ramp, let's say if you're a wheelchair user. But even when you're inside, just to control all the interfaces in the vehicle. For example, just turning the air conditioning or the heat up, changing the music, adjusting your seat, all things that may be more challenging depending on your physical or sensory capabilities. We have the students basically create a set of narrative scenarios. So imagine creating little like movie storyboards, and each of those is like 3 to 5 panes, but you take someone through what does the experience of using this application look like, and then that's what helps drive the interaction design that we do in the actual, the mobile application design to sort of pick, which features and which features say for specific people. So to give an example of one, we could imagine, so we always try to imagine a user. So in this case, let's imagine a user who is blind. So a blind user may actually have their phone. Actually, many people already have their smartphones set up. They either use voiceover or and they actually do use the touch inputs, but they also can use, say, speech-based input. So we can imagine in terms of the control of the vehicle, when the vehicle arrives, it might speak out, your vehicle has arrived, and it's this far, say, ahead. And then maybe there's an audio alert on the vehicle that kind of helps guide someone. But from there, they can actually have a standardized application where they could, for example, use, say, speech to text to say, open the door, unlock the door, close the door. But you can also have that be sort of a standard layout such that someone who does prefer, because they're quite used to using their phone in a touch-based way, that they're able to sort of just touch and they know where the buttons and the interfaces are for that.
So who all have you partnered with on this project, and what have they brought to the table as you've worked through this proposal?
So we've partnered with a couple of different groups. Primarily, one of our biggest partners has actually been our community. We have a number of people from the disability advocacy community, from the transportation advocacy community, who have been meeting with us in a series of community meetings online. And we've really learned a ton from them. And actually, a lot of our project was shaped by our conversations with them. One of the big things was this idea that riding in a car can actually be a really enjoyable experience, and actually having that sense of control over your experience, that the control over the ride, and having information, basically being able to communicate effectively with the vehicle, really allows you to kind of enjoy that ride, but also really have that sense of independence that we have with our goal of kind of autonomous vehicles. So, the fact that autonomous vehicles can allow people with disabilities to have more independent mobility needs to sort of be paired with this idea that they actually feel very in control and kind of comfortable and confident while they're going on these rides. One of the other partners we've been working with has been an industry partner, Propel, which is a company that they actually develop trucking software to interact with truckers and to use data-driven kind of information to help with that. But they've been helping us in thinking about actually how to develop the technical sides of the app and the mobile design systems to utilize the phones in an effective way.
That's great. Any other kind of anecdotes or stories on how you have engaged with the disabled community during the development of this project? I know, Nick, you mentioned it a little bit, but anything else there to share? That's a wonderful part of this aspect.
Yes, I'll jump in on this. As far as engaging with the community and the conversations we've been having monthly meetings involving multiple members of the community organizations. And the conversations kind of evolved. We've had conversations about thinking about assistance in the vehicle. And so our early conversations were a lot more about how someone might get help if they need something in the car, maybe if it's from another person, or now that there's not a person in the vehicle with them. But then that kind of evolved into this conversation about control and what happens if I just want to control the different other aspects of the car. How do we make this really an enjoyable experience, a positive experience of being just in the vehicle, because it does mean it's more than just getting from point A to point B. If there is a ride there, and you should have a good time in that space as well.
Yeah, and just to kind of drive home, this idea about independence and control really came from our community members, our partners. So they helped kind of create the research agenda in that way, helped form the kind of problem that we were solving for in this case. And we're getting continuous feedback and iterating based on that feedback from the disabled community through those monthly meetings.
And thinking about the proposal and continuing it on, what is your ultimate goal for the project? What kind of impact do you think is possible with the work you're doing?
In terms of our ultimate goal and sort of aspirations for the project, we're really thinking about the design work that we're doing as hopefully helping to start industry to think about standards for communication and control of autonomous vehicles, and really standards that are fully accessible. And so one of the reasons why we're leveraging the fact that we're building on mobile phone technology and all the accessible features there is because these are systems that many people have. They already own the device. It's already accessible. It's already a device that they're comfortable using, and they've already set up for their own preferences. So rather than having to kind of have a multitude of different ways to interact with all kinds of different vehicle brands or service providers, that you actually have one form and one way of interacting that works across vehicles. That's one of our goals.
Just to kind of add on to what Nick said, the kind of interoperability would mean that it wouldn't necessarily need to be a car that you owned in order to kind of make use of this app, this technology. So thinking about kind of the use of also kind of shared vehicles as well. So this would kind of open it up beyond those who might be able to afford an AV, for example, which is kind of far out for many.
Then thinking about kind of, lessons learned, what would you say is one of the most important takeaways that you've had as you worked on this project, or something that you'd really like, our audience or the general public to know more about?
So I think actually referencing back to some of the things that we learned in our community meetings, one of the things really that struck us and has really driven a lot of our development has been this idea of kind of design for positive experience, designing for that great experience in a vehicle, not just having an accessible experience. So of course things should be accessible, but actually not just getting to that, well, okay, it's now usable by someone who has a disability, but that this is actually just as an amazing an experience as any able-bodied person who's using that. And I think that that really has shifted our thinking and really pushed us in a way to create and to design our project around trying to go for that goal, rather than just an accessible experience.
Just to add to that point about accessible experience and positive experience, I think one of the things that's come out of our community and the engagements that we've been having is just this idea of control. You should be able to have the experience that you want to have in the vehicle, rather than, this is a positive experience because we designed it to be fun or enjoyable, but you also are in control of what that means for you, rather than having that dictated by the software or dictated by whatever company is running the rideshare or whoever delivered the vehicle. All of these should be considering that as kind of a standard thing, that you should be able to choose your own way to enjoy the experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing about the community meetings is just this commitment that we have to the co-design process. So kind of along the way, each decision that we make, kind of moving forward, even moving toward this kind of standard setting idea, was really informed by community members and kind of what they surfaced in conversations that we had with them over the course of months. So I think, in addition to kind of design output, we're also thinking about kind of new methods for designing technology more generally, such that it can be more community driven and kind of less top down, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Well, thank you all so much for your time and, for explaining to us the proposal, and congratulations again on being selected as semifinalists.
Thank you.
Thank you.